Hey Leon, what up though? Yeah, Joe.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ashton Pemberton, and welcome to Beyond the Divide, where we talk about black political thought from the past and present. I'm holding it down today for the immaculate Craig Scott, and we're just going to be talking about black businesses. So one of the main points that I wanted to get off today was about black people and supporting our own businesses. Now, there is this probably common misconception that black people don't actually support each other. You all have probably heard stats about dollars circulating in the black community for less than 6 hours compared to other communities, or 6 days compared to other communities. But what we've got to think about is how that's a misconception because of a few things. First, when we think about black people, we have to think about the environments that we're in our communities and how they've been structured. So whether it's redlining and segregation, controlling where people can actually shop, whether it's black businesses not being as fruitful or existing in as many places as other types of businesses in our communities, or if it's these bigger companies and corporations actually dominating the marketplace as it relates to necessities, or black businesses not actually getting the capital that they need to be in the communities as much as they want to. There are so many different things that are happening in our communities, and oftentimes the blame and the onus is put on individual black people, and this notion that we don't support each other, that we don't want to uplift one another in our business and our business pursuits and efforts is a falsity. And so before you actually take a second to think, hey, my brother and my sister, we don't support each other, we don't care about each other, look at the structure, look at the environment, and ask yourself, if we know that redlining exists, if we knew that segregation exists, when these communities are being created, because a lot of our ghettos and a lot of our lower income communities were created strategically, what are some of the things that might have taken place in terms of how these communities are structured that might impact how black people are able to not only access each other, but support each other and have fruitful and thriving businesses that target us? But there is this question, they say, Dr. P, what about the onus to support? Should we want to support black businesses as black people? Is that what we owe? As a black man or a black woman, do I owe another black man, black woman my support in business? And here's what I'll say. I would say that I support black folks collectively, but individually, there are some folks who are skin folks, but not kin folks. So some black folks have businesses and organizations that are detrimental to the culture. I don't support those. And from a personal and interpersonal level, if I go and have a bad experience because of bad customer service, a lack of organization, which you can experience with any business of any race or culture, I will not go out publicly and go out of my way to bash a black business. However, if you are not treating people with warmness, kindness, and care, I'm not going to go out of my way to support a black business either, right? But I think we have to remember that there are a plethora of black businesses that are warm, that do show compassion, kindness, and who look out for us in a very special, special way. And then finally, one of the big concepts is, well, Dr. P, how do we find ourselves supporting black businesses, especially in this digital age? And I would say there's so many different examples, and we'll sort of start from what's going on now and take it all the way back. So think about what's going on with Target right now, okay? So an effort led by Pastor Jamal Bryant and others was when we actually took away our support. A lot of black people around the country took away their support from Target. And that has resulted, and we don't know that all this revenue was lost solely because of the boycott, but we know that about $12 billion in revenue was lost by Target just by black people getting together and galvanizing and saying, we're not going to do something. We are not going to support this store. And that also happened not only because Target was taking away some of its DEI policies, but it was important for Target to be a target, no pun intended, because it was one of the biggest employers of black people in the country. And so for you to take away diversity, equity, and inclusion policies that impact black people in such a way and fashion, we found a way to galvanize and organize and say, hey, Target is on the no shop list. So we have that current example. But as someone who is a part of the National Panhellenic Council or a Black Greek organization, Blue Fi, there's also another example of this that's happened from a digital perspective. So Mona Scott Young, who is a producer and creator of shows like Love and Hip Hop, for example, she actually was on a tear back in the 2010s. And in 2014, she made the mistake of creating a show called Sorority Sisters, which was showing the lives of black women who were a part of Black Greek letter organizations. And it was very messy. It wasn't something that the organizations themselves found had any dignity, that had any class. And I remember 11 years ago, I was watching the show because I was a big Love and Hip Hop fan, and I saw black people galvanize on Twitter. Everyone was saying, don't support these sponsors. Anyone who's supporting this show, we're attacking it. We're attacking it at the head. We're attacking the snake at the head. And so it wasn't, let's cancel Mona Scott Young. It was, hey, let's hit them where it hurts. Let's make an economic impact. And so we saw that happen. And of course that show was taken off the air, and the results were so bad that some of the people who actually were in the show, they were denounced from their organizations or kicked out of their own organizations. And so black people do have a history of galvanizing and understanding what economic impact can do. And then finally, of course, when we're thinking about boycotts and understanding how we can really shift communities and shift what is going on in our communities by coming together, we look at things like the Montgomery bus boycott from 1955 to 1956. We look at how MLK and Rosa Parks and others created an infrastructure because they saw the bad treatment that the Montgomery bus system was enacting on our people, right? And so they had systems in place beforehand to figure out how to not only hit the bus system where it hurt, but also get the demands that we asked for, which we ultimately did. And so I think the real question with black people and supporting black businesses is, what do we ultimately want? Right? A lot of times it's not that we don't want to support each other, but when you think about convenience, when you think about structural intentionality from these huge corporations, when you think about food deserts, a lot of things are not accessible to us. And sometimes the people that we want to be in our communities who look like us, who will do services and have products that are for us, it's harder for them to access it, or even harder for them to start a business because of racism in terms of access capital or access to capital. So what we have to figure out is, hey, do we, instead of supporting McDonald's, do we want to figure out a way to get food trucks into our communities on certain days of the week, for example? When we're supporting hair stores who are not owned by people who look like us, do we want to bring in other people from surrounding cities or surrounding towns who are selling products that are relevant to us, that will look at us and say, hey, I don't think you're trying to steal or do anything bad, who can look at us and say, hey, you look like me, you're someone young in the community, I want to bring you on to work in my business to keep you occupied. So I think that there are a lot of different ways that black people can galvanize and organize, but I think this idea of we don't support each other, we don't care to support black business, I think it lacks nuance and it lacks a historical knowledge of all the different ways in which we have come together. But I think that is also up to every community. I will not pretend to act like I can think for or speak for communities and what they want. But what I would encourage communities to do, every black community across the nation, is figuring out what works in your ecosystem and what doesn't, and then create those plans from there. I don't think that you have to be in a food desert and stay in a food desert. I don't think that you only have to support that local convenience store or that local hair shop when they don't have people who look like you and they don't support you. We understand that even during the riots in LA, there was a black woman who was killed being at a Korean store, and that store was supported by a lot of black people in that community in LA. And so we have to think about, how do we create pressure and put financial pressure, legal pressure, and social pressure on our political system to have more black businesses in there. And we've got to think, and we have to be strategic in terms of coming together and creating a plan of attack beforehand and creating an infrastructure for things beforehand. I don't know if everybody participated in the Montgomery bus boycott, but what I do know is that MLK, Rosa Parks, and others had a system already in place so that a lot of people would not support it enough to create that financial impact.
Watch what you do, cause it's coming back tenfold, either way it goes.
All right, everyone. So we're taking a look at some of the questions that you all have sent in and DM'd. And we have Kyle105 who said, hey, Dr. P, what are some of the things that black entrepreneurs can do to gain access to capital, and how can a community support black entrepreneurs who actually want to do more and show up in the community? And so one of the things that I think about is I grew up in a community that had a few entrepreneurs. My aunt was an entrepreneur. She had her own daycare, and she has turned it into a great business, bought multiple properties, things of that nature. And so what does that look like in a practical sense? So that looks like people in the community coming together, thinking about all the different banks that they have good relationship and rapport with. Also, I've heard this at conferences before, there are some black businesses that actually give loans to a lot of the non-white but non-black business owners in local communities, in certain communities. And so what does it look like to take a community, say, hey, look, I want to start a business, but I have no way to gain capital. I don't know how to get access to funding. What does it look like for a community to come together and say, I want to talk to this bank about this situation. I want to talk to my bank about your situation. And I want to say, what are some of the tips? Or, hey, I know of a black bank. It's a little bit further out, but we're going to find all the different black banks that are in the area, and we're going to bring them to you, and you all are going to talk about some ways that you all can get this business started and you can get a business loan, right? And so once again, it's about recognizing that if you get the right people in the community who care about the community together, you can do anything that you want to do as it relates to black business or black capital. There are so many entrepreneurs, and if communities could come together and say, hey, look, you're coming from our community. If we are supporting you and you are getting bigger and more fruitful in your business, you can actually bring that right back to us. But once again, I think that if entrepreneurs are going through things like not being able to get access to capital, utilizing the folks in your community that do care and who are leaders and who may be even doing activism and more political things in the community, they might have some relationships, maybe not personally with the banks, but someone that they know might, right? And so it's about utilizing your network. In a community, people are going to banks. They're creating some type of connection with some type of bank teller. What can you do, and how can you utilize that when all of you are coming together? So, Kyle, I really appreciate that question.
Watch what you do, cause it's coming back tenfold, either way it goes.
All right, so we got another question. This is from Ronnie from the 305. He says, hey, Dr. P, I know that there are a lot of things that have happened historically in terms of how black people support each other in business, but with all the black folks who have lost jobs this year, over 300-some thousand, and the advent of AI taking a lot of jobs and us really moving into a new technological era, how do black people navigate that without falling behind? So Ronnie from the 305, there are so many different things that can be utilized. I think once again, I've been on a lot of different online communities where folks are sharing testimonials and they are sharing online resources. And so now what we are coming into is people who have access to the knowledge of AI, and how do we transfer that to people who are in need of it without folks who are in need having to pay an arm and a leg to get access to that information. And so I think once again, if you have leaders in the community who are technologically advanced, who are being super successful with AI, you got to think about how do you do a trade and barter system with them. And so if I'm someone who knows AI, for example, and I can teach a lot of black business owners how to access it, or I can teach people how to apply for jobs and how to get through ATS systems and things of that nature, how can we do something so I'm benefiting and my community is benefiting? So that looks like all the community leaders getting together and saying, hey, look, if you can do something for us for free and give us your time and your presence, We will have folks who will do testimonials for you. We will have someone who can record it and you can use it as clips and it can build your expertise. We can have everyone in our audience go on social media and share those things. And if you can do that maybe once a week or once a month for the community, that would be super, super helpful. And then of course you want to now have a digital profile. So now when things are happening as it relates to businesses being taken by AI and not using AI properly, well, now there's a digital hub that everybody in our community can access. Now there's different clips of this speaker going over some of the different ways to use AI and all the ways in which people usually get stuck using AI. And then as it relates to the 9 to 5, I need to go to a job type of situations, we need to be looking out for each other in a very, very special way. So I'm a part of organizations where every time there's some type of job in higher education, for example, I'm getting a notification. I can hit up that person who posted it in that group chat and say, hey, what are they looking for? How can I stand out as an applicant? And so when we're here in 2025, when it's the digital age, we have to have a community that is so tight-knit that we know that we're looking out for each other and that we can't miss opportunities, that we can't miss notifications for new jobs in the brick and mortar space, I'll call it. But then in the digital space, we need to have information hubs. And every leader who's doing this, who wants to build and grow their brand, when they give to communities, when they give them their time and their energy, even if a community can't pay them what their quote unquote worth or what their value is, social proof is going to help any entrepreneur. Social proof is going to help any business. And so Black people, we know that we make things hot, that we make things trendy, that we really control the social temperature of the world and especially of this country. And so I think that when you can offer an entrepreneur that, if you can offer someone who's giving you time there, that's awesome. And I think that in this age where money is tight for everyone, this trade and barter system is going to be super, super important. When you have people who have the expertise in AI, when you have the people who have the expertise in how to navigate the job market or switch up a resume or skill sets because DEI is under attack, we need to find ways to pull these folks in and say, hey, entrepreneur, what do you value? What can I give you that is worth just as much as money or even more than money, right? Can this be a tax write-off that you do by speaking to us? Can we offer you social proof by sharing your videos and clips? Can we create some type of system where we're saying, hey, this person has a Patreon. I think that you should definitely do this Patreon. And now there are 40, 50 people saying that as social proof. And so I think that there are so many nuanced ways to give folks who have the expertise the power to influence the communities while also feeling like they're getting something back in return. Because I do believe that no matter what labor we are doing and who we're doing it for, there has to be a way for us to get some type of fulfillment and joy out of it. And if I'm someone who's receiving a lot of help from somebody, for free from a monetary perspective, we're going to figure out a way to look out for you on the back end in some way, shape, or form. And so I think that we just have to be more dynamic. And I feel like if I have faith in any community to do that, it's our community. And so running from the 305, I would say that yes, people are losing jobs, but I'm on threads and social media groups where people are getting jobs, where people are getting not only jobs, but bonuses and raises. And that's because there are experts in our communities that are doing this work low key and sometimes high key. And we just need to get the right people connected to them. But we don't ever have to necessarily be in a deficit if we have systems and infrastructures in place for Black folks to say, hey, look, yeah, the job market is looking crazy right now, but my job just has this opening. I can show you how to use your resume and your skill sets to make yourself stand out. I can put in a good word for you here. Because me and you had this conversation because you're in this group. So now all these other folks who are applying for this job, they don't have the advantage that you have. And I'm gonna make sure that happens for any qualified, well-meaning Black person in my community. And I think that that's what we've had to do for years in a bunch of other different categories. And I think that this is no different. We just adjust and we pivot like we always do. We are pivot masters, right? And so I think that when you're thinking about this modern day and age, it's all about how do we utilize and optimize these private digital communities and in some cases public, but how do we utilize these private digital spaces that are centered around Black economic empowerment, Black social empowerment, so on and so forth. And when you find the key to that, then we're unstoppable because now it's, hey, this is what's going on here. This is what's going on here. And no one will be the wiser. This is how you change your resume up. I've had the conversations with the people who are hiring. This is what they're looking for. Now you're unstoppable. And so that's how I would really tackle these new troubles with AI and the job market in 2025 and beyond.
Watch what you do, cause it's coming back tenfold. Either way it goes, man.
I was having a dinner with Councilman Irving Allen, and he told me, hey, it doesn't take all of us. It just takes a few good people who have a strategy and a plan. And so in closing, I do want to emphasize that this idea that black people don't support each other, that we don't support our businesses, it's a lie. It's a falsity. We have to think about how are our communities set up and what ecosystems do we have in place to support black businesses as a default, not because we're going out of our way. And if that doesn't already exist, I would encourage all of us to look throughout history, whether it be from a digital perspective or from a boots on the ground perspective, in real life, face-to-face person perspective, and say, okay, what has been the history of how people have put economic, social, and legal pressure on systems to create the communities that we really want? We know that black people make something and quite honestly, everything out of nothing. And so you're not stuck in whatever community situation you're in if you don't like the ecosystem. There's examples of any and everything that you want to think of. You can look at Black Panthers with hospitals, food programs, anything you want to do in your community you can do. But from the outside looking in, whether it's black people or folks who are not a part of the black community, let's please stop this notion that black people are not supporting black businesses and don't have a desire to. We do, we just need the right infrastructure and ecosystem. And I want you to know, if you take nothing else from this, that creating whatever type of community or ecosystem you want in your community is so plausible and so possible, and it's on you. Let's figure it out. And that has been Beyond the Divide. This has been Dr. Ashton Pemberton. Thank you all so much for your time, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Watch what you do, cause it's coming back tenfold. Either way it goes,